Texas stands at a crossroads. The economy is booming, but the pressure is growing. Water is running short in many parts of the state. Property taxes and insurance costs are stretching family budgets. The border remains wide open in many areas, and in recent months, severe floods have ripped through Texas towns, exposing the cracks in aging infrastructure. Texans have watched federal officials ignore these issues for years. But on July 4, 2025, everything changed. That's when President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The bill cuts taxes and strengthens border security. It also invests in water and energy infrastructure. At the same time, it supports rural communities with new resources. It brings big changes to healthcare, law enforcement, and the way federal money reaches the states. And it does all of this while restoring pride in American values and protecting states' rights. For Texas, this new law could mark a turning point, but not everyone shares this optimism. Elon Musk has warned that the new law could destroy millions of jobs across America. Others worry it will balloon the deficit or deepen political divides. So what does this all mean for Texas? Will this law bring real change or just more headlines and finger-pointing? In this video, we'll explore what this law means for the Lone Star State and whether the criticism is fair. Before we start, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And now, let's dive in. Tax cuts. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act made one thing clear from the start: Washington would no longer punish hard work and success. For Texans, this came as long-awaited news. The bill locks in the lower income tax rates passed back in 2017. Without action, those cuts were set to expire. Families and small business owners faced the threat of higher federal taxes within months. Now, those tax hikes are off the table for good. Middle-class Texans are the biggest winners here. The bill expands the standard deduction and child tax credit. That means more working families get to keep more of what they earn. For parents trying to cover rising costs, every extra dollar counts. And for seniors on fixed incomes, the law also protects Social Security from being taxed away. It even removes federal taxes from tips and overtime, giving relief to workers in restaurants, oil fields, and hospitals. Small businesses now benefit from a permanent 20% deduction on qualified income. That includes contractors, ranchers, and family-run stores across Texas. It encourages hiring, reinvestment, and long-term planning. In past years, temporary tax cuts created uncertainty. This law removes the guesswork and rewards local entrepreneurship. For Texas, where small businesses are the backbone of local economies, that's a major shift. The bill also raises the exemption for the federal estate tax to $15 million per person. That's important for multi-generational farms and ranches. Many Texans were once forced to sell land or cattle just to pay a federal tax bill. Now, more families can pass down property without losing it to Washington. That change protects heritage, especially in rural counties where land is legacy. Critics claim the bill helps only the rich, but the data tells a different story. Provisions like the expanded Earned Income Tax Credit and higher child credits primarily benefit working-class families. High earners in urban tech or finance centers gain little compared to a family with 3 kids in Amarillo or Midland. This law isn't about cutting checks to billionaires. It's about removing federal pressure from everyday people who make Texas run. The bill also takes aim at what many Texans saw as unfair penalties. It eliminates federal taxes on interest from state college savings plans. It cuts red tape for retirement withdrawals and reduces IRS audit pressure for low-income earners. And by making tax policy stable, it encourages companies to bring more jobs to low-tax states like Texas. In the bigger picture, this is not just a tax bill. It's an economic reset for productive states. Washington is finally acknowledging that job creation, investment, and family savings begin with freedom from excessive taxation. By locking in lower rates, the law gives Texans a stronger foundation in uncertain times. Lower taxes mean higher confidence, and higher confidence builds stronger communities. How long have you lived in Texas? Do you believe these tax cuts will help working Texans hold on to more of what they earn? Let us know in the comments. Our team needs your help. Subscribe to our channel to help more people learn the truth about current events. And now, we move on. Water solutions. Texas has faced water shortages for decades, but in recent years, the problem has escalated. Explosive population growth, aging infrastructure, and recurring droughts have pushed water systems to the brink. Some small towns have already run dry, others are operating under strict usage restrictions. Farmers across the state are watching their wells drop and their crops wither. For a state this big, water scarcity is no longer a distant threat. It is a daily reality. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act addresses this issue in a way previous federal laws never did. The bill directs billions to the Bureau of Reclamation to support water projects in drought-prone states. That includes large-scale funding for reservoirs, pipelines, canals, and aquifer recharge systems. Texas has long needed this kind of federal backing. Now the money is available to expand storage, improve delivery, and capture more rainfall before it disappears. For rural communities, the bill brings targeted support. It triples funding for watershed protection programs and land conservation. That allows Texas farmers and ranchers to adopt better irrigation methods and protect local water sources. The law also encourages crop rotation and conservation farming with incentives instead of mandates. This approach rewards producers who use less water while keeping their operations strong. Water theft and overuse have become growing problems in some agricultural areas. The bill helps address this by tying certain subsidies and grants to sustainable water use. That means large corporate farms drawing from shrinking aquifers will now face limits unless they make efficiency upgrades. For smaller family farms in Texas, this levels the playing field. Responsible stewards of the land no longer compete against those who abuse the system. On the infrastructure side, OBBBA removes barriers that slowed construction of water facilities. Environmental reviews, which once took years, are streamlined under the new law. That means existing projects in Texas, such as water pipelines or storm drainage systems, can move forward faster. After recent floods exposed the weaknesses in Texas infrastructure, this change is timely. It allows federal funds to flow where they are needed before the next disaster strikes. Texas lawmakers also established a state water fund this year. The federal dollars from OBBBA will multiply its impact. With both state and federal governments investing, local water boards and utilities will finally have the resources to act. That means better pressure, cleaner water, and more reliability, even during heat waves or droughts. The law does not just talk about water. It funds real-world solutions on the ground. Critics say the bill does not go far enough, but compared to past legislation, it marks a shift. It treats water security as national security, and it puts the tools in Texas' hands to solve its own problems without micromanagement from Washington. For a state that has often had to go it alone, that is a major change. Do you think the Big Beautiful Bill will help solve Texas's water crisis? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Now please take a moment to hit that like button. It's a small action, but it helps YouTube's algorithm promote our videos to a wider audience. Border security. For decades, the southern border has been a point of frustration for Texans. Illegal crossings, drug trafficking, and human smuggling became part of daily life in many counties. Ranchers found fences cut and gates broken. Local sheriffs struggled with overwhelmed detention centers. Cities and towns along the Rio Grande were left to deal with the consequences while Washington made promises it never kept. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act finally puts real resources behind border enforcement. It allocates over $40 billion for the construction of new barriers and patrol roads. That means more steel wall segments, more surveillance towers, and more floodlights in high-traffic areas. Texas will see expanded infrastructure in regions where the state was forced to build alone. This time, the funding comes from Washington, not just from Austin. But the law does more than build fences. It also funds the recruitment and training of thousands of new Border Patrol agents. These men and women will now have modern equipment, drones, and all-terrain vehicles to monitor the vast Texas landscape. Many agents had been using outdated gear and working double shifts. The bill changes that by restoring capacity and morale within the enforcement system. Advanced scanning systems are also part of the package. At legal ports of entry, the law funds high-tech inspection tools to detect weapons and narcotics hidden in cargo. These scanners are designed to catch smuggling operations without slowing down legal trade. With Texas as a hub of international commerce, this balance matters. It protects border security without harming economic flow. A new federal fund included in the law will reimburse states for their own border efforts. Texas has already spent billions on operations, officers, and barriers. Under the new policy, that money is no longer a sunk cost. It becomes part of a shared national effort. Local sheriffs, state troopers, and National Guard units will now operate with stronger backing. That means more boots on the ground and more confidence in the field. The law also increases detention capacity, which had been stretched past its limit. More facilities mean fewer catch and release cases. Those who cross illegally will face real consequences. This discourages repeat attempts and reduces the pressure on Texas cities that often absorb the overflow. The law also strengthens ID verification for federal benefits. That ensures taxpayer funds go to citizens and legal residents, not to those who enter the country unlawfully. Do you believe this new law gives Texas the resources it needs to finally secure the border? Share your opinion in the comments below. Share this video on X and Facebook to help us grow. Every share counts. Insurance relief. Texans are paying more for insurance than ever before. Homeowners in every part of the state have seen their premiums rise year after year. Families in flood zones face sky-high costs. Even those far from the coast are being hit by rates tied to hailstorms and tornado damage. Some companies are pulling out of entire regions. Others raise prices or deny coverage with little warning. It is no longer just an inconvenience. For many, it is a crisis. While the One Big Beautiful Bill Act does not directly regulate private insurance, it changes the conditions that drive rates higher. The law makes major investments in infrastructure resilience. It funds levees, drainage upgrades, and flood control systems in vulnerable areas. For Texas cities that have flooded repeatedly in recent years, this matters. Stronger infrastructure means fewer claims. Fewer claims mean lower pressure on insurers, and that can translate into lower costs for property owners. The bill also streamlines the approval process for federally funded repair projects. In the past, local governments waited months for permits to rebuild damaged roads or water lines. Now, those delays are cut down. That allows towns to bounce back faster after storms and reduces the long-term risk exposure that insurers use to justify higher rates. It is a behind-the-scenes fix, but one that creates real savings over time. In addition to public works, the law boosts support for emergency response systems. Texas will receive new funding for weather monitoring, disaster response centers, and evacuation infrastructure. These measures are not just about saving lives. They also help reduce the damage from major events. When risk is better managed, insurance becomes more affordable. Companies see that Texas is taking disasters seriously, and they adjust their pricing models accordingly. The bill also reduces the financial strain on school districts and local governments by providing federal support during disaster recovery. In the past, rising insurance costs forced districts to cut services. Some even considered shutting down buildings. Now, federal funds will cover a larger share of rebuilding. This keeps schools open and communities stable without passing costs to local taxpayers. The long-term goal is to stabilize the market. By strengthening infrastructure and reducing risk, the law removes some of the key drivers of rising premiums. While it does not force private companies to lower their prices, it changes the math behind their decisions. and it gives Texas communities a chance to push back against the spiral of rising costs and shrinking coverage. Critics say the law should have gone further, but it is a step in the right direction. For the first time, federal policy acknowledges that insurance costs are linked to infrastructure and disaster risk. By making smart investments now, the law aims to ease pressure on families and businesses for years to come. Do you think these changes will help lower insurance costs where you live, or are deeper reforms still needed? Let us know what you think in the comments. Energy freedom. Texas has always been an energy powerhouse. Oil rigs in West Texas, gas pipelines through the Gulf, and wind farms across the plains all drive the state's economy. But in recent years, federal regulations began to slow this engine down. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act changes direction. It removes key restrictions on domestic energy production, including oil and gas exploration. Federal land is once again open for leases. Offshore drilling in the Gulf of Mexico is protected and expanded. That means more rigs in the water, more jobs onshore, and more fuel flowing into American markets. For Texas, this is not just an economic boost, it is a matter of energy independence. The law ends special treatment for politically favored energy projects. Companies building wind and solar farms on federal land will now pay market-based fees. These projects will no longer be shielded from environmental review or tax obligations. In Texas, where energy innovation thrives across sectors, this creates a level playing field. No form of energy will be punished or propped up unfairly. If it works, it wins. Natural gas, a major part of Texas output, also gets a boost. The law streamlines the approval process for pipelines and export terminals. This helps move Texas-produced gas to both domestic and global markets. It also ensures the state's grid can access reliable power when demand spikes. After recent blackouts, stability is no longer optional. OBBBA treats grid reliability as a national security issue. At the same time, the bill eliminates funding for programs many Texans saw as wasteful and ideological. It repeals billions once earmarked for electric vehicle subsidies aimed at wealthy buyers in coastal cities. It shuts down climate justice block grants and bureaucratic programs that raised energy costs without delivering results. These cuts stop Washington from using federal dollars to push one-sided energy agendas. Instead, the money is redirected toward real infrastructure and domestic production. For Texas, this means a level playing field. The state leads in both fossil fuels and renewables, but it does so through innovation, not mandates. With the old subsidies gone, no company is forced into politically driven projects just to stay competitive. Texas energy producers are no longer penalized for doing what they do best, keeping America powered and affordable. Do you think Texas should continue to lead the nation in energy production without interference from Washington? Tell us what you think in the comments. Welfare reform. Welfare in America was created to be a safety net, not a permanent income. But over time, the system drifted from its original purpose. In many states, millions of able-bodied adults receive benefits without working or looking for work. Verification is weak. Fraud is widespread. And taxpayers in productive states like Texas have been left footing the bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act addresses this with a simple principle. If you are able to work, then you should either work, train, or volunteer in order to receive assistance. This does not apply to seniors, disabled people, or parents with small children. It targets those who can contribute but currently choose not to. Under the law, recipients of programs like Medicaid and food assistance will need to engage at least 20 hours per week in qualifying activities. This requirement is not just about reducing costs, it is about restoring purpose and self-reliance. States that have tested similar policies saw more people leave welfare for work. Employment rates rose, dependency dropped, people regained confidence. For Texas, a state that values responsibility and hard work, This shift matches the culture. The law also strengthens citizenship verification across federal programs. That means Medicaid, SNAP, and housing support will no longer be granted to people living in the country illegally. This change protects the integrity of the system. It ensures limited resources go to citizens and legal residents, not to those who bypass the law. At the same time, OBBB protects and expands support for the truly vulnerable. Children, disabled individuals, and elderly people continue to receive coverage without interruption. The bill even includes new funding to stabilize rural hospitals, many of which serve low-income and aging populations in Texas. These hospitals have been closing at alarming rates. Now, with flexible grants and modernization programs, many can remain open. For states like Texas, the law offers more control. Instead of one-size-fits-all mandates, it allows governors and local agencies to design welfare delivery that fits regional needs. That means rural counties can structure programs differently than big cities. It also means better oversight and faster removal of ineligible recipients. Critics claim the law is harsh, but supporters argue that dignity comes from contributing, not just receiving. Work requirements were part of successful reforms in the 1990s. They reduced poverty and increased earnings. OBBBA brings that model back, updated for today's challenges. This is not about punishment. It is about fairness. Those who truly need help will get it. But those who can help themselves will now be expected to do so. For Texas, this means fewer abuses, more accountability, and a welfare system that aligns with local values. Do you think requiring work in exchange for welfare builds a stronger society? Or should aid remain unconditional? Share your view in the comments. Rural revival. Small towns across Texas have been fighting to survive. As big cities grew, rural communities lost jobs, schools, and hospitals. Young people moved away. Local economies shrank. Basic services became harder to find. Some towns were one hospital closure or school shutdown away from disappearing. For years, state and local leaders tried to fill the gaps, but without federal support, their resources were limited. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act finally gives rural Texas the attention it deserves. The law directs new funding toward rebuilding essential services outside of major metro areas. That includes money for emergency rooms, primary care clinics, and rural ambulance systems. In many parts of Texas, these services were stretched thin or gone altogether. The bill gives rural counties the tools to keep people healthy and safe close to home. The law also makes major investments in rural broadband. High-speed internet is no longer a luxury. It is a requirement for healthcare, education, and business. The bill expands access to online services that many rural families have lacked for years. Students can now take remote classes. Patients can access doctors through telemedicine. Farmers can use data-driven tools to manage crops and livestock. Businesses can sell across the country instead of just across town. Infrastructure in rural Texas often lags behind. Roads, bridges, and water systems were built decades ago and never modernized. OBBBA includes streamlined approval for rural infrastructure projects. That means counties will wait months instead of years to repair roads or build new water lines. After recent flooding exposed weak spots in drainage systems and levees, this support could not come at a better time. The law does more than send money. It gives states the freedom to target their spending. Instead of federal agencies deciding what rural Texas needs, local officials now have more control. That flexibility makes it easier to fund the projects that matter most in each county. It also speeds up timelines and reduces waste. For rural Texas, this is more than policy. It is about preserving a way of life. It allows people to stay in the towns where they grew up, raise families, and build futures. It gives communities a chance to attract new businesses and stop the cycle of decline. It says that rural Americans are not forgotten and their problems are not invisible. Critics may call this spending excessive, But the alternative is letting rural Texas fall further behind. OBBBA makes the case that strong communities begin with strong foundations. The bill invests in places that have too often been ignored, and it gives them a path to grow again, on their own terms. Do you live in a rural community? Is your town growing or falling behind? Tell us what you see happening where you live in the comments. Answering critics. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act sparked immediate backlash across political lines. Critics claimed it would balloon the national deficit, strip vital programs, and favor the wealthy. Among the loudest voices was Elon Musk. He warned that the bill threatened to destabilize the economy and walked away from previous support for Trump. Musk criticized the cuts to clean energy incentives and argued the bill was a step backward for innovation. Others echoed those concerns. Budget analysts estimated the bill could increase the federal deficit by nearly $3 trillion over the next decade. Opponents said the math did not add up. They claimed tax breaks were tilted toward the rich, while working families would see minimal relief. Some worried that funding for Medicaid and food assistance would be slashed just to balance the books. In Texas, some community leaders expressed concern about losing access to federal aid. Hospital administrators feared changes to Medicaid could hurt rural health systems. Teachers' unions said education could suffer as Washington pulled back on certain grants and shifted control to the states. The media framed the bill as reckless, rushed, and full of political favors. But supporters see it differently. They argue the real problem is not spending cuts, but decades of bloated and inefficient bureaucracy. The bill removes barriers that have long slowed Texas down by simplifying tax codes, cutting regulations, and ending unnecessary subsidies. It opens space for true growth. Texans will keep more of what they earn and choose how to spend it in their own communities. Concerns about Medicaid are valid, but the law preserves coverage for seniors, children, and people with disabilities. The changes focus on reducing fraud and encouraging work among able-bodied adults. For many, that shift reflects a deeper value, support for those in need, not a permanent system of dependence. As for Elon Musk and the clean energy crowd, the bill does not ban innovation. It simply ends the era of Washington picking winners. Texas leads in wind and solar because of market demand, not handouts. The law treats all energy fairly, whether oil, gas, or renewables, and lets states compete on a level field. Some say the law is too ambitious. But when water, housing, power, and security are all at risk, ambition is not a flaw. It is a necessity. ABBA is not a patch. It is a full reset. And for Texas, it may be the only real chance to take control of its future. Do you believe the critics are right, or is this bold action exactly what Texas needed? Share your thoughts in the comments. Texas values. For generations, Texas has stood firm in its commitment to faith, family, freedom, and hard work. These values shaped the state's identity and guided its communities. But in recent years, that foundation has been tested. Across the country, federal agencies and coastal elites have pushed new agendas that often clash with what Texans believe. Education, housing, and even national celebrations have become battlegrounds for cultural control. At the same time, Texas has become a magnet for people fleeing high taxes and broken policies in blue states. Many bring their politics and values with them, challenging the traditions that made Texas strong in the first place. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act gives states new tools to push back. For Texas, it means more power to decide what is taught in schools and how local communities shape their future. OBBBA removes many of the strings that came with federal education funding. Instead of forcing controversial programs or politicized curriculums, the law gives school boards and parents a bigger say. Texas can now decide how to teach history, what to prioritize in classrooms, and how to protect parental rights without fear of losing money from Washington. Beyond schools, the bill restores state control in areas like housing and social services. For years, federal agencies have used grant programs to influence local policy. Towns were pressured to change zoning laws, accept new social experiments, or adjust policing strategies. With OBBBA, states can opt out of these mandates without losing essential funding. That means Texas can focus on what works for its own communities rather than complying with coastal ideals. The bill also recognizes the importance of shared national identity. It creates dedicated funding for celebrating the 250th anniversary of American independence. But unlike past cultural programs, this one focuses on honoring the country's founding, its constitution, and the sacrifices made along the way. It avoids divisive rhetoric and centers the story on freedom and perseverance. For Texas, where patriotism runs deep, this signals a clear return to respect for national pride. Critics say the bill turns back the clock, but many Texans believe that Washington went too far in trying to reshape local values. Restoring local control is not about resisting progress. It is about choosing a direction that matches the state's character and beliefs. The bill empowers Texans to keep their communities aligned with their own standards, not someone else's vision. As people continue to move to Texas, the question becomes more urgent. Will the state hold on to what makes it unique, or will it be transformed by outsiders and federal pressure? OBBBA tips the scale back towards self-governance. It puts Texas in charge of Texas again. Do you think Texas should hold firm on its values, even as the rest of the country changes? Let us know what your community believes in the comments. Texas comeback. For decades, Texas paid more into the federal system than it received. Billions in tax dollars left the state while key priorities went underfunded. That imbalance is finally starting to shift. Under the Big Beautiful Bill, federal money is coming back to Texas in record amounts. For the first time, Washington is reimbursing Texas for securing the border. The law unlocks up to $13.5 billion to cover costs from Operation Lone Star, including National Guard deployments, detention centers, and patrol infrastructure. Families also get relief through expanded SALT deductions. Texans can now deduct up to $40,000 in state and local taxes each year. This change benefits families and business owners across the state. In growing counties like Travis, Collin, and Williamson, homeowners have been hit with rising appraisals. These new deductions offer real help. They also ease the financial pain for people who moved from other states, especially those relocating from places with higher costs. Meanwhile, the bill cancels billions in programs that were seen as wasteful or overly ideological. Funds once reserved for luxury electric vehicle subsidies, climate advisory boards, and green policy grants are being redirected. That money now supports infrastructure that Texans actually use. Roads, bridges, canals, and water treatment facilities are being prioritized. This means more construction jobs and fewer service disruptions in rural towns. Infrastructure upgrades will reach deep into the countryside. Dams, canals, and irrigation projects will receive long overdue repairs. Rural hospitals and clinics are finally getting the federal attention they deserve. The bill also expands funding for broadband internet, which allows small towns to grow business opportunities, retain schools, and improve telemedicine access. Texas also gains from renewed investment in space and science. The Johnson Space Center in Houston is set to receive over $10 billion. That includes support for manned missions and partnerships with the private sector. The Space Shuttle Discovery is being relocated to Texas, backed by an $85 million investment. This symbolic move positions Texas as the new capital of American space exploration. So here is the question. Do you think Texas is finally getting its fair share from Washington? And what part of this comeback gives you the most hope? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for exploring the hidden corners of Texas with us. Click on the video you see on the screen to check out other hidden discoveries on our channel.